What is up, guys? Rick Kackis here. Thank you so much for stopping by, and today we are going to be taking a look at the 5 worst things to happen in Destiny 2 for 2019. Now, before you call me a hater, this is a companion video to yesterday's video, which was the 5 best things to happen in 2019 for Destiny 2. And overall, that video was easier to make. I think this was an overwhelmingly positive year for Destiny 2. Some absolutely groundbreaking things happened, and there was absolutely more good than bad. With that being said, there was still definitely some bad and things that Bungie should be looking to improve going into 2020. And so, let's get started with number 5. So, we have Season of the Drifter. Now, I think this was undoubtedly the worst of the annual pass DLCs, with Season of the Forge, Season of the Drifter, and Season of Opulence. Funny enough, Season of Opulence actually made yesterday's top 5 list for the best things of 2019, so it shows just how stark of a contrast we had with those two DLC offerings. On the one hand, even Season of the Forge and Season of Opulence let you choose what loot you wanted. Season of the Drifter didn't. It had fantastic weapons, and it did add a bunch of new perks, which was a hugely positive addition, but the way you got the weapons was just mindless grinding and hoping and praying for RNG to be on your side. In addition to that, the focus on Gambit for a lot of players really fell flat. Like, that was a risky move on Bungie's part, basing an entire DLC on Gambit, and it turns out a lot of people hate Gambit. Now, in fairness, some people love Gambit, and there's nothing wrong with that, but the fact that Gambit was just one of those game modes that was really dependent on your team made it very frustrating to play for a lot of people. I don't think there's a single game mode in Destiny 2 where a blueberry can screw you over that much. I've literally played Gambit rounds where my blueberries sat by the heavy. Like, the match starts, everyone's killing ads, they plant themselves by the heavy and don't help kill a single ad and just wait. And as soon as it spawns, they grab it and run into the invasion portal just to be killed immediately. And when that happens, like, you are not coming back from that mistake for the majority of matches. Like, you have just screwed yourself, or I should say, a blueberry has screwed the rest of your team. Now, of course, this doesn't happen every single time, and like I said, there is some people who really enjoy Gambit, and I myself have had some really fun experiences in Gambit. But making us play that much Gambit for that DLC, and the fact that Gambit Prime really didn't feel that much different, and often the same problems that were present in Gambit were showing up in Gambit Prime as well, it was a bit of a swing and a miss, and I'm really glad to put it on this list because, frankly, a lot of the main problems from Season of the Drifter, like not being able to choose your loot, the fact that the Reckoning is capped at only 4 players, that was all rectified in Season of Opulence going forward, and Bungie has definitely improved after that point. But it is time to move on from there to our number 4 selection, and that is Season of the Undying. This happened very recently, and it's on the list because, frankly, it doesn't seem to be necessary that Season of the Undying happened at all. It was tacked on to Shadowkeep, and the reason being, I think, was because Bungie wanted to introduce us to the idea of seasons and the Seasons Pass and all of that stuff going forward. Season of the Undying obviously leads to a lot of the same themes as Season of Dawn that's happening right now, but if you look at the value for money, Season of the Undying just didn't have it. Like, compared with Season of Dawn that's happening right now, just how many exotic quests are tied to it. The fact that Sundial is so much more extensive, they have rotating bosses and all this cool stuff, whereas Season of the Undying, for the same price as Season of Dawn, offered not nearly as much. The activity with Vex Offensive wasn't that substantial. When there was the final assault thing, it was an absolute joke. It barely changed the mechanics. Well, it really didn't change the mechanics at all. offered no new loot. In fact, we had the same 4 Vex offensive weapons the entire time. It was very disappointing, and unfortunately, it kind of left a sour taste in a lot of players' mouths who did spend that $10 to get Season of the Undying, and instead of just getting Shadowkeep, and were ultimately left pretty disappointed. And I think that potentially negatively impacted, the view of the next season, Season of Dawn, even though it's so much better. So in my opinion, it wasn't necessary to do this at all. Introduce us with Season of Dawn to this new DLC model instead of shoehorning Undying in there. But it is time to move on from there to the number 3 selection, and that is cheaters. Right now, Destiny 2, there's a pretty good chance that if you're playing PvP, if you're grinding it all day, you're gonna run into a couple of matches where there's people teleporting around the map and killing you instantly. I've ran into a few myself, and it is extremely frustrating. In fact, near the top levels of comp and so on, there are teams that are like, 160 wins and 0, and they still haven't been punished for blatantly cheating. And part of the reason for this is that Bungie is not really taking action against these cheaters. Unfortunately, although it's very easy to point fingers at Bungie, it's actually a little bit more complicated in terms of a solution because, one of the best features that happened to Destiny 2 in 2019 is the fact that it became free to play, and the player base has really exploded because of that. But it means that if you're a blatant cheater and you get banned, you just start a new account in a couple of seconds. Like, the punishment is really not there. Whereas if you're cheating, let's say on PlayStation, which, really hard to do that on a console, but let's say you are, and you're banned from there, it's a whole ordeal to get a new account and get back into Destiny 2. But for the PC version especially, it's really suffering from these cheaters. Now, there is possible alternatives like an IP ban and stuff like that. Hopefully Bungie explores these options in 2020 because especially if you're going to be reintroducing trials, which everyone seems to think they are, and most of the hints would lead you to believe that they are, you can't have this many cheaters when trials is your marquee activity. Like, could you imagine being 1 win off of the lighthouse and you encounter a group of people that you literally can't win, they're teleporting around the map, instantly killing you? Like, that is just gonna ruin so many experiences, so hopefully Bungie does something to address this problem before that launches. But with that said, it is time to move on to the number 2 worst thing to happen in 2019, and that was just Eververse. Now, Eververse, I don't think it's as bad as some people are making it seem, but we've had several run-ins kind of with Eververse throughout this year. There have been several things that the community has said, hey Bungie, you're going a little too far here. This is not the way we want things to happen. And in Bungie's credit, they have often addressed these things. I mean, right now, the fact that with the Dawning, those bounties are also rewarding Bright Dust, so you have kind of an extra avenue to collect more Bright Dust and spend it on the store. But the fact of the matter is that I think players are getting a little bit tired of, a new exotic launching, and there's 2 cooler versions of that exotic immediately available in the Eververse store. And I mean, you're just thinking, why doesn't this exotic look like the cooler ornament version? Are they purposely making exotics less cool so they can make the best versions available to buy for money? Why do all of the sparrows you earn in gameplay look like 1/10 as cool as the ones in Eververse? Now, with a few of these, Bungie's got to make money, especially that they're independent now. I totally understand, and that's why Eververse not impacting, gameplay is such an important thing, and the fact that Bungie has overwhelmingly continued that trend is all good news, but at some point you've got to say, all right, throw us a bone. Take just a couple of those really cool Eververse ships and ghosts and sparrows and sprinkle them into the actual game and make them earnable via gameplay. There's a lot of really hard triumphs that give you nothing other than triumph score. Why don't they give you a really cool exotic ghost? Like, would that be that unreasonable? You just have to take a couple of things out of the Eververse store and put them into the game and make them actually accessible for those of us who just want to play the game. And I really hope that starts happening more in 2020, or an avenue is created to let people get some of those Eververse cosmetics through gameplay in other ways. For example, exotic ornaments. Let's say you can, for the exotic ornament for the Black Talon, you can buy it in Eververse right now, or if you get 5,000 kills with your Black Talon, you unlock it. So you can pay to get it early, or if you just want to play the game, you can also have that avenue to unlock it. I think that's something that Bungie needs to look at again more in 2020. However, it is time to move on to the number one worst thing in Destiny 2 for 2019, and that was PvP balance. Now, the fact of the matter is that Bungie has an incredibly tough job with Destiny 2. They've got to balance PvE and PvP, constantly be introducing new and powerful things that players care about, all while keeping things balanced. That's incredibly tough to do. But oh my goodness, some of those PvP balance decisions just has players scratching their heads. Like, how would Bungie possibly think this is a good idea? And you can insert that statement into so many different things. I mean, handheld supernova is absolutely absurd with the controversy whole. Like, you can't counter that. It's just insane. And the one-eyed mask was such a problem for so long. They did finally nerf it, but those are just a few examples of so many different things. In my opinion, it's absolutely crazy that there are so many cheesy one-hit kill things in the Crucible, and then most primaries have a 0.8 or almost a 1 second time to kill. Like, you're gonna tell me that I can just press a button and charge up an instant kill thing that's going to basically wipe anyone on my screen away, and it's gonna charge back by next life basically because my discipline is 100. Or I can use a scout rifle, and unless I completely catch someone in the open, I'm not going to be able to kill them before they dodge away or run away or whatever. Like, to me, that doesn't make sense, the massive gap between primary time to kill and all of the cheesy shenanigans, but that's just one man's opinion. Regardless of what you think about the Crucible, I think all Destiny 2 players agree that the time in between balancing updates is simply too long. Bungie is trying to time everything out in these 3-month intervals, but even then we have outliers like the Recluse SMG, which is finally in a decent position now, but it was a problem for so long, and it really doesn't make sense that something as powerful as the Recluse could be that prominent for like over 6 months. Like, it just boggles the mind. I mean, every other game, if you look at Call of Duty Modern Warfare, if you look at most other PvP games, even Fortnite, they are constantly updating their game and constantly changing the balance. And if they nerf something too far, well, you only have to wait a couple of weeks until that thing is buffed back up again to find a happy medium point. I don't understand why Bungie is so incredibly slow with their balancing updates, and frankly, it's causing a lot of problems. It seems like the culture of the studio is that they want to get everything right and have a patch that just fixes everything and they don't have to touch the game for 6 months. But that's never going to happen, Bungie, and all it does, waiting this long for something to be fixed, makes players hate the meta and frankly get frustrated with the game because it's 6 months of dealing with the same weapons and the same BS. So hopefully, moving into 2020, Bungie can start patching not only once every seasonal change, but maybe at the halfway point, have another balancing run through just to shake things up a little bit more often than they are so far in 2019. And so guys, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed, found this interesting. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at @RickKackis. That's linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.